Because innovation and technology are tools that can directly address the wide ranges of challenges that people living with ALS, MND and their caregivers face while we work towards this vision, this area is a priority for the Alliance. So over the past few years, the Alliance has implemented several projects to advance its technology and innovation strategy, including the Patient Needs Framework. I'll now turn it over to Jarnail Chudge, the Alliance's Innovation and Technology Lead, to explain more about these programs.
Thanks, Gethin. And hello, everyone. It feels amazing to be here in person. I've been working with the Alliance now for about 5-6 years. And in the past few years, I've always participated remotely or virtually. I started that association while I was at Microsoft, working as part of the Windows Eye Gaze technology team, working to really go beyond productivity, but look at more human experiences around expression, around creativity, around other areas that in particular speak to that broader dimension, that broader aspect of ourselves. My background is in design, and although ostensibly I've been sort of part of the Innovation and Technology Advisory Council, I'm not really going to be talking much about technology. But hopefully, based on some of the sessions yesterday and this morning, one of the key takeaways that I hope I leave with you today is to ask that question about how design can help tie some of these disparate but unifying threads together. Now, the work that we started from the Patient Needs Framework actually goes back over a couple of years. And it started with the work in 2022 with the roundtable to really start to get a better understanding of what were some of the challenges that we were coming across from our member organizations. And a key contributor to this was the personas that ALS Canada did. Incredibly detailed, incredibly thorough. And we, in turn, took those and thought about, well, how do we enrich a persona? Because we know that a persona, by its very definition, is something static. And I think one of the things that certainly came out yesterday was the understanding that our experiences aren't static. They're dynamic. They're constantly changing due to a whole range of both internal and external drivers and reasons and so on. So we came up with the idea of using Maslow's hierarchy to start to model and better understand the different dimensions of that and how what we were seeing from the different personas and their respective needs could be then better mapped. And then from there, produce the first version of the patient needs matrix. But of course, over the last couple of years, there's been enormous changes in technology. And what we've been doing, I guess, over the last 6-9 months has been to try to take that landscape view of how are all of these changes occurring, coming together, what impact are they having, and most importantly, perhaps, what can we, from the Alliance perspective, and from your perspective as member organizations, do to make sure that we are representing the needs of our broader community in the most effective and the most valuable way. And that's what much of this session is actually going to focus on. So these were the personas that ALS Canada did a few years ago. Some of you, I'm sure, were intimately familiar with them. And we have Steve, who's a caregiver. Sorry, Henry, who's the caregiver. And then Steve is early onset. And we've then got Moira, who's got slow progressing symptoms. And then Fred, finally, is the one who's got advanced ALS, MND. And we can sort of see that in terms of capturing that broad range of needs, the personas do a really, really good job of that. What we then did was to take these and, as I said, map them to Maslow's hierarchy, and then in that table, start to think about, well, what are these technologies that are currently available and accessible, and how do they map on to these different personas? and then started to think about, well, what are some of the technologies that are within the near term, 12, 18 months, and then even beyond that. And from there, we came across, for the round table, the first version of the matrix, which, as you can see, starts to break down those 5 areas of Maslow's hierarchy into subcategories. And then in turn, we looked at the broad network within the Alliance and started to think, well, what are the different contributions that people are making that we can sort of bring to bear here and place in this particular matrix? And the idea here was really to, I guess, broaden our perspective of the range of different human needs and currently what's available, and also what's happening in different parts of the world. But of course, from 2022 onwards, there have been enormous changes in the technology landscape. Need I say it? Generative AI has come to the fore in a way that perhaps nobody had really anticipated just a couple of years ago. On top of that, we've got robotics and autonomous devices. There's now the prevalence of low-cost sensors, brain-computer interfaces. The pandemic forced telehealth and progress in telehealth in particular in a way that I don't think anybody had imagined could take place in such a short space of time. We've started over the last couple of years to really hear about and experience through augmented reality technologies, whether it's virtual reality or mixed reality, just the value and the impact that they're providing for people with ALS, but also in terms of helping others understand and appreciate both what that means, but allowing people to be able to express themselves too. One of the areas that we've been involved in within the Alliance over the last 12 months has been the voice preservation project in Colombia that Marcela mentioned yesterday. And that in turn gave us the opportunity to start to really better understand a broad range of considerations that from a low middle income country perspective, that perhaps from a technology point of view, particularly given my background and the area in which we've worked, we generally don't tend to consider. Whether it's to do with infrastructure, environment, affordability, access, the regulatory framework in a particular country, etc. All of these considerations, and we learned a lot about these as well yesterday in terms of some of the challenges and constraints and issues that people are facing. And of course, recognizing now, and it was clear, I think, over the yesterday in particular, that desire, that earnest wish to connect with everybody, to make sure that the inequity that exists globally is something that we collectively try to address in the best way that we can. Which then started, I guess, for us, from the Alliance perspective, a period of introspection. So how do we, from our point of view, respond to this in the most effective way that we can, in line with the vision of creating that world free of ALS, MND? And in many ways, this session, this presentation, is an invitation for us all to help shape that future. Over the last few months, then, we started to jot down some of the activities that we were either directly involved in or indirectly, and started to see where they appeared on the spectrum. But the thing that really, I think, accelerated our thinking was putting together the Day in the Life of Experience Suite, which we're going to be setting up later on today, which will be open over the next couple of days, and there'll be more information on how you can sort of register and go up to visit on the 7th floor. Because all of a sudden, the concept of reserving a suite and then looking at each part of the suite itself, whether it's the living area, the kitchenette, the bedroom, the storage areas, the bathroom, etc., it brought home in a incredibly direct and impactful way that these are the parts and parcel of routines of everyday life. And so the suite is really intended to showcase and illustrate a broad range of technologies, whether they're analog adaptations for holding a phone or helping a person eat and so on, or whether they're digital or virtual and so on, there's that whole spectrum of technologies in situ, and you'll be able to experience these firsthand and also talk with a range of experts and partners and collaborators who've kindly donated a lot of the equipment here. So we started to put together a very detailed spreadsheet, and just to make it a little bit more readable, and we'll of course be sharing all of this afterwards, you can see that very quickly this started to fill up in a way that we hadn't quite anticipated. Lots of gaps, but equally, I think it helps us sort of understand that there's an enormous amount of innovation and adaptations that are already available that you may not be aware of. And further, looking at the personas and then revisiting them through this broader perspective, we're able to enrich those even further. Starting to include aspects, for example, from Moira's perspective, the sociocultural aspects of her experience, which are really, really important to her. Being mobile, being independent. For Fred, access to technology in a way that will make a significant difference to his life. And then we also further developed, based on the recent work of the last few years of Maslow's hierarchy, extended it beyond the 5 and had greater levels of granularity. And in many ways, we can almost start to break these up into the bottom 4, which are to do very much with physical, let's say, day-to-day living, and perhaps where much of the attention and focus has been to date. And then when you look at self-actualization, cognitive, aesthetic, and transcendence, those are perhaps dimensions, aspects of the human experience that haven't been considered in as much detail. And then mapping that directly to the personas, we can see that there's a very, very strong correlation. This then led us to start developing, in many ways, the meat here is perhaps a model, going back to the earlier question of how can we, from the perspective of ALS, M&D, start to have a more direct, more insightful conversation from each of these personas across each of those different dimensions of Maslow's hierarchy. And what I've illustrated here is purely for discussion, it's qualitative, and perhaps it represents that particular point in time for each one of these personas. But the key thing here, I hope, is that this is a model or a framework that can be used more broadly, and in turn represent a person's individual experience, their individual journey, and their relationship with what's important to them, almost certainly at that sort of fundamental physical level, but also at that more emotional, that more existential level as well. And this then, of course, led to a further mapping exercise, which you can start to see the range of technologies, the range of items now, which we've started to populate in the matrix, has grown enormously just in the last couple of years. And even here, I don't think there's still further work to be done. I don't think it really captures everything that is perhaps available. So we'd invite you all to certainly contribute and feedback to this. The approach to analysis that we've had is, of course, that there's been a growth in a range of different technology solutions. I think this is also helping to deepen our understanding of the experience of PALs and CALs, and in particular, the diversity of perspectives that engaging with Colombia and other areas in the global south has opened us to. And one of the things that we then started to do, thinking about this broader landscape, is if we take this and develop it further, what does this mean in terms of global availability? And this is, once again, pretty subjective, intended to really invite or provoke conversation and discussion. The darker green cells are the ones where there is perhaps strong coverage from a global perspective, or strong areas where there have been industry investments or areas of academic research and so on. And what we're then planning to do in terms of moving forward with this is using this and the preceding information as input in helping us shape a better understanding of what can we, from an alliance perspective, based on your input, based on your participation, based on your collaboration, do that will help make a difference from an innovation, from a technology perspective, I guess, but focusing most importantly on the broad diversity of human needs that will ultimately make a difference to the community. So we're planning a roundtable early next year, and we'll start to send out more information over the next month or so. But I would really, really love for everybody to be able to contribute and participate in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jarnail. And I'd just like to emphasise that it'd be great to have as much participation as possible in those roundtables, because it can really guide the way these projects go forward. If we don't have any input, we don't know where to go. Do we have any questions? Oh, one at the back there.
Hello, Jarnail.
Hey, Manji.
Hi, I'm Dr. Himanji from Home in here. My suggestion or an idea is that as an alliance, if we project a problem statement and we call all the engineers or students globally to solve the problem statement by technology and come up with prototypes. So Alliance can get many solutions to one problem, and then maybe our IT committee can choose one design which we think is more feasible or appropriate or the best design, and then help the student or engineer to get that prototype in market so that the product will come out for all the ALS patients. So it's an idea which I think as an alliance can take it forward.
No, thank you, Himanji. I completely agree as well. I think certainly over the last few years, we've had lots of experience working very closely with students from across different universities, and the different perspective that they bring has been enormously helpful, both in terms of freshness of ideas, not being tied down to perhaps legacy technology. So that's been really, really important. And I think that's something that we are always actively looking to get more and more involved in.
Like, we are doing it with IIT Mumbai. So we tell the students that, okay, now we want to develop something or maybe a walker which the advanced patient can use for transport. So some kind of problem, a specific problem, and then the student come out with the option. So I think we can use that idea globally.
I would absolutely love to learn more. And yeah, I'll speak with you afterwards, Himanji, and look to see what we can do to support.
Thank you.
We have a virtual question. Angela Harris from MND Scotland is saying, great presentation, Jarnail, thank you. We would love to be involved in the roundtables. How do we do that?
So we'll start sending out information in January in terms of pre-reading materials, just so that we can in many ways establish a bit of a baseline of, I guess, some of the technology, some of the advancements, and some of the potential areas where we see considerable opportunity for impact, but also seeding it with questions. In particular, where do people see gaps and where do people see opportunities? As part of that, we also intend to perhaps provide a couple of provocations in terms of areas or aspects that maybe we haven't quite yet sort of bottomed out, but nonetheless, based on some of the conversations that we've already seen and the presentations from yesterday, trying to get that broad and as diverse a perspective as possible, I think is going to be absolutely key to us.
Question at the back.
Yeah, Steve, husband, caregiver. How do you go about gathering the data from caregivers to put on that spreadsheet?
Yes, a couple of ways. Certainly the information from ALS Canada served as a fantastic starting point because they went through a pretty thorough, pretty rigorous process of interviewing, observation, shadowing, standard design, ethnographical type of approach. And within the Alliance itself, the projects that we've done and also the various advisory committees which have representations of carers in addition to PALS as well, their input has been absolutely essential in pretty much every single activity that we undertake.
Okay, and just one last quick question. What do you see as perhaps the coolest bit of new tech coming in at the moment that can really revolutionise care or quality of life for people living with MND?
Wow, I mean, I think in many ways it isn't about technology. I see technology playing a subservient role to ultimately what matters. And those, I think, are the top 4 levels of, and I hate calling it Maslow's hierarchy because it almost sort of suggests that you progress up the different levels. I see it as something which is far more circular, something which is ever present all of the time. But I do think that those upper 4 areas are the ones that give us perhaps the greatest opportunity, the greatest potential to make a difference. And over the next few months, I think with your input and with your insight, we'll come up with technology ideas and innovations that I think, could change the world.
So watch this space. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Jarnail. Jarnail.